Great. Welcome to the February 3rd meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. This meeting being held entirely by Zoom webinar, and as such, all votes will be taken by roll call. Please be aware that the meeting is being both video and audio recorded, and please mute your microphone when you are not speaking, and please direct all comments and questions through the chair. And with that, we will move on to the agenda. Are there any questions? Excuse me, let me present here for commissioners. Commissioner Levitt, can you hear us?
I can.
And Commissioner Planzer
Yes.
and myself. And Commissioner Marks will not be joining us, and I understand Commissioner Buscarin will be joining as he's able. We do have a quorum, so we will proceed. Any questions, comments, or concerns with the agenda as published? Hearing none, we'll consider that adopted by unanimous consent. And then do we have any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes from January 13th? So hearing none, we'll consider those adopted by unanimous consent. I would entertain a motion to ratify the warrants of January 7th and January 21st.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on those warrants? Hearing none, Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Any public comment? I see that we do have a few folks on with us. You could raise your virtual hand or just speak up and I will recognize you. Okay, I'm not hearing any public comment. So that will bring us on to pending leases and contracts as set forth on Exhibit 1. And if we could share that screen, please, and I'll turn it over to Manager Smith. Mr. Smith, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, good deal. All right, sorry I'm having trouble with my speakers. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, commissioners. Going down the list, the first one we have on here is with Stowe Enterprises, DBA Fresh Air Services. This is an amendment to their license agreement for permitted parking space. So the cleaning services asked for an additional parking space on the ramp close to the FBO building, which was not initially included in their original lease. And we are allowing them to park on ramp for visual purposes, as well as keeping their original parking space in the FBO parking lot. They had requested a second vehicle, but we feel it's best to only allow them one vehicle, but have these two spots. And that way, if things get crowded on the ramp during peak season, we can move them into the FBO parking lot. So it's just more of a formality to this amendment for this lease. The second one down the list is with GMSTEKX1, who does our credit card processing. X1 software. This is to process our Amex, Master, and Visa cards, and it also includes 4 new touch payment terminals where you can just tap your card rather than have to swipe your card. So it's for their device subscription as well as these 4 terminals. And the third one we have on here is a World Fuel Services contract for a 3-year contract that we had been building prior to when a fuel subcommittee had been established. And now that we've been working with legal on this one, I do feel that it would be best for us to hold off on this one and bring it more to the discussion in our first fuel subcommittee meeting, which is scheduled for next week to discuss more about this contract. So that's all that I have for those 3. And I at least ask for your motion on the first 2 and just any further discussion on that World Fuel Services contract at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there a motion to approve the lease amendment with Stowe and the contract amendment with GMS Tech and accept the recommendation for further discussion on the World Fuel?
So moved.
Yep.
Your motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the contracts at this time?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Um, Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. And that will bring us on to the letter of authorization to proceed with the design services for the airport terminal optimization project. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, just a brief on this one. So this letter was drafted to be able to have McFarland Johnson, our chief consulting firm with the airport, to get started on designing the airport terminal optimization with the intent to not expand the building at all, with no curb work or landscape needed. The work would be within the existing walls with the intent to move the airline ticketing offices into the basement area, shift the baggage makeup southward, which would increase the hold room capacity. I do have our chief consultant, Rich Lasden, on board. In the meeting this evening to to address any questions that the commission may have with this letter. Like I said, this letter is to authorize them to begin the process prior to us having the task order in hand, as we still need to build that out through the review of the scope, get the FAA's approval of the scope, get Massachusetts Department of Transportation's approval of the scope, and then of course get an independent fee estimate on that that task order total before we can get that task order signed, hopefully at our next airport commission meeting.
Mr. Laston, anything you'd like to add?
So, thank you. As we've talked about, the airport did apply for a grant. This is most likely the last year of the grant opportunity. The grant process works in that you had submitted last month your interest in receiving the grant, which was the NOFO, or Notice of Federal Funding Opportunity. And that just puts you in a bucket of people that are interested in funding. As we've discussed, the airport, when you built the terminal you see today, it was about 59% eligible. So when we did this application, we did a quick analysis and came up with about 53% eligible. So the number that we put in the application was based on asking for the entire 53% eligible amount. The grant award, you will hear if you've been selected probably April or May, but when we put in your actual grant application sometime this fall, it would be based on actual construction costs. So you'll have my actual fee through the IFE process in your signed task order. And then we have to design the entire terminal to 100% and put it out to bid. And so that your application in the fall is based on a 100% completed design and a contractor price through a bid process. And then the maximum you would get would be 53% of that total value. So if, for this conversation, we use $27.5 million, we're all said and done. We take out the things you've discussed, it goes out on the street, the total project becomes a $22 million project. Your award would be reduced to 53% of $22 million for the maximum amount. Now, this award is totally discretionary across the United States. There's no guarantee that you get anything or the maximum amount. You literally could get nothing. You could get $1 million. You can get $15 million. There is no magic on the award process. There is, Warren, you sat in on AAAE earlier in the week, and you said there was $7 billion in applications for about $1 billion in money, if I quote you correctly.
That's correct. 588 applications, roughly 7.1 billion in funding.
So it's totally discretionary, and it's completely, I'm not going to say completely arbitrary, because the FAA does bundle these all up from all the regions and send them to Washington. How they select them, I don't know. But they go to, based on all the applications, they go to Washington, and then they are selected. And as I indicated, the award, the amount of the award is unknown until you get the actual letter from the government telling you what the award will be.
Thank you. So
Yep.
that's great background information. And I think we're all, cautiously optimistic and hopeful that we'll be awarded something and hopefully all of it. Um, but back to the scope and the terminal design
Mhm.
itself. Um, I think that the commission we worked very quickly to sort of, decide to scale things back a bit.
Mhm.
And then there's also terms of projections from the master plan. And I think that I know as one commissioner, I would like to make sure we have a solid understanding of the needs compared to what it is that we're going to construct.
Okay.
And I know that you've also received, we've kind of given direction along the lines of staying approximately within the
Sure.
four walls, if you will.
Yep.
So I had asked Mr. Smith if he could get us some information, and I'm not sure if and he just provided that this afternoon. So I would like to just kind of run through that collectively with the commission. This is kind of the chance for the commission to discuss it, as well as I don't know if it was sourced through you working with Mr. Smith, but if we could all talk about, I
Sure.
think if we're going to agree to a task order, um, that what exact direction are we giving you for what we expect our end product terminal to be? And I
Absolutely.
think that a lot of it is going to come down to hold room capacity, right?
Hmm.
That it's we've got a sense of the number of hard stands, the size of the jets. We kind of know whether we get into all employment forecasts and projections and sort of some of this stuff might be dated. I would like to take or at least have a discussion on a more simplistic basis on, if all of the hard stands were full with
Hmm.
at a single point in time with essentially the maximum size aircraft that is going to fit, what kind of number would we be looking at for number of passengers? And again, I don't think this is a full design exercise so much
Hmm.
as to have an understanding
Hmm.
of what we have right now with the tent and the hold room, what
Yeah.
it is that the current scope, if we agree to go forward, would build, and how does that number look like compared to all those jets at one time, that number. And then we can have a discussion amongst, I think, everybody. So that was the information that I had asked for, and what Mr. Smith had sent me. Do you want to run through that,
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Why
Yeah,
don't I'll
Mr.
turn it
Chair.
back over to you for since you did
Absolutely.
you did the work, and I don't want to take credit for it. I appreciate
No,
it.
you're absolutely correct. So our current hold room plus tent plus the little space that you walk out to the tent capacity is 313 persons. The new design that was given to the commissioners that Fenwick McCready had drafted up shows that if we were to shift the hold room and increase that capacity, it shows a total capacity of 361 souls, in that, which is a delta of roughly 48 more people. Um, with the potential increase in upgauge of aircraft with, say, American Airlines, probably not this season, but most likely next season. What that does is it puts a lot of strain on our current ramp to where Spot 4 pretty much becomes obsolete, if I'm correct, Mr. Lasden. I don't think we'd be able to utilize Spot 4 just because of how small of a space that is. And then, of course, with JetBlue increasing all their fleet to the Airbus 220 and Delta and United Airlines keeping to the Embraer 175. So if Spot 4 is unavailable to use, and of course Spot 7 we utilize strictly as overflow in the event of an emergency, so we do not use that as a normal day-to-day ramp operation for loading and unloading of just scheduled aircraft. What you're looking at would be 5 aircraft on the ground at one time, two A220s, one A319, and two E175s. The 220s hold 140 passengers, same with the 319, and the E175s hold roughly 79 passengers at its capacity. All in all, that is a total max of 578 passengers that could be in the hold room at one time, well above the 361 total capacity. Assuming that, say, the airlines were at 60% capacity, which is pretty standard within our region across the board year over year, that still is a total of 393 passengers that could be maxed out in the hold room at one time, which is still a delta of 33 more people with the new hold room capacity increase. So there still is a demand for that increased space. And then this is, like I said, assuming that we have 5 aircraft on the ground at one time, which is highly possible, especially during our summer season when we get fog and delays do occur and aircraft are not getting out in time. It can definitely create quite a large volume of passengers in the hold room at one time. So that's the information. I do believe, Mr. Lasney, I'm right with the 79 is the Embraer 175, correct? Does that sound correct?
It sounds reasonable
That's
to me.
about right. Yeah. Okay.
And just to point out, yes, gate 7 is your overflow gate, but gate 6 is restricted by wingspan. So that
Correct.
would be one of your smaller planes because of the wingspan restriction.
It does put a strain for United and Delta to increase their capacity of aircraft, and we would be unable to allow them to upgauge with the A220 and 319 at that time. We would not be able to
Until and
accommodate.
if we can move the hangars that are restricting the wingspan.
Correct. But that's just one spot. I don't think we are allowed to use gate 1 because the wingspan would stretch into taxi lane Foxtrot, if I'm correct as well.
Correct. We have maxed out the size that would fit on that position also.
Correct.
So what I'm wondering is a couple of things. So this is great information to help give us a sense of that, essentially if we said go here, we're picking up 50 seats, in terms of a hold room, but we're getting rid of the tent. I mean, there's a big improvement. I don't want it to sound, that we would be significantly improving our terminal and our passenger experience. But in terms of planning for the future, and level of crowding that may happen now, we might not quite be there. And one of the things I was wondering about is if we approve the task order to get you going, is there opportunity to modify the design or really, I mean, I know we're in a time crunch and you're in a time crunch here. So we've got to really get this figured out. But when is the time at which, you are given the green light from the commission and that is the point of that's the design is the design?
So there is levels of design as you understand, we design up to a 30%, then we go to a 60% or whatever you might call those.
Sure.
But I
The
guess
program, when do we establish the program?
so when we get to 30%, we're pretty much done because at that point we're starting to design structure and HVAC equipment and architectural facilities. So we have up until the sort of the completion of the 30% design to sort of stretch and reconfigure a little bit.
So would we be, would it be wiser for us to have another programmatic meeting to determine before engaging on the full design scope in terms of the commission deciding what the terminal is going to be? We have the program that you gave us, and we had some discussion on it last time, but I feel like the questions that were raised were good ones in terms of how does this program meet our future needs, right? And we sort of, I didn't, there was on the plan the information about the number of seats on that. But now that we're really looking at it, one of the things I'm wondering about is have you already maximized that proposed hold room, or is there additional options to expand that to reduce the baggage screening area or the ticketing lobby? What might or do we go slightly? We had already planned to bump out into the ramp that
Mhm.
6 feet or 8 feet, whatever,
Right.
do you go another 8 feet if you're already going in that direction and doing another wall?
So all good questions. Yes. We also have in that new hold room configuration included space for concessions.
Yes.
So right now your concessionaire is out in your tent. So we have included space in the concessions inside that space. So yes, there is some time to I guess, and the architect happens to be here on the call. There is some time to do some more thinking, but not a great amount of time. We're all under and the government has not published when the grant applications are due. So we are under the assumption that the grant applications are going to be due sometime in September. If they pull the grant application forward, then we're cutting time, and so we don't know when we have to sort of run really fast, but we're getting to the point now we have to finalize the programming.
Do you have a sense from past experience and perhaps from the architect that if how many seats based on the studies that have been done that we would really need to not be if all if we're getting up to a point in time that understanding, not trying to project growth of the ramp or additional, but with what the airport could intake right now, and
Yep.
understanding that's not perfect because of delay or
Yep.
overlap, right? But to
Yep.
have some sense, right? If you're talking about 578 passengers, um, possibly all at the same time, understanding that's unlikely to happen, what is in your professional opinion an appropriately sized hold room, not contemplating limitations due to existing structural features?
So interesting, and I might ask our architect to help me out, but there is planning tools on terminals, and there's a difference between people standing there and people sitting. So the rule of thumb for a terminal used to be 80% of the people sat in chairs, and only 80% of the people showed up early. So the terminal was sized at 80% of 80%, your hold room, because the rest of the people were either standing, and standing takes up less space than sitting per se. And then a lot of people show up at the last minute. Now, and then as the airport manager pointed out, the 578 was based on 100% load factor.
Sure.
And I don't know what Nantucket's is, but it's not anywhere near 100% load factor. I think they're probably 60% is what the number he quoted, and I think that's pretty accurate. So those numbers do come down. But Tom Rafter, your previous port manager, used to say you never build the church for Easter Sunday, right? And even in highway design, as you know, you typically do highway design based on the 15th highest day of capacity, or there's always a number that you
Right.
design for 100% capacity.
So we might not be that far off.
Correct.
If at 100% at 578,
Yeah.
80% of 80% is 370, and we're at
Yeah.
361.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, um, you know, it also makes me wonder, and I know we've gone through a lot with this with the architect, in the past discussions, but might a slightly, something that at what point could we slightly add on to the perimeter, maybe in both directions of the corner hold room without
Right.
impacting ramp operations?
And so right
Um,
now that 5 feet does that. Because the
that's
whole,
the limit. You
well, no,
went
we
to.
haven't looked at the rest of it, but there is on the commercial service side, there already is a tail height impact to your transition surface of that runway. And
Mhm,
we have a modification of standards with the FAA because the tail heights already penetrate the surface. So
mhm.
pushing them back further would further penetrate that surface.
And what you're saying, and I think we'd be looking at this in a way, hopefully not to modify hard stands, especially given the other project that we have going on, right? But
Right.
is there room that doesn't push everything out? Would be sort of one of the things I would be wondering. You already done some. Did you go as
Yeah.
far as you could? Or an understanding there's going to become limitations to the structural elements of the
Yeah. So that
of the
your
roof
best,
line,
right.
and I know that it's a snowball, it's not just an easy one off, but I guess what I am wondering is if we're gonna head down this design, how do we get the most that we can for the capacity of the hold room without getting to that next level of complication for the structure, but more importantly, um, ramp impacts.
So, again, not wanting to reconfigure or redesign the passenger screening area because that adds a lot of complexity. Um, Pushing to the north or up towards your existing baggage area is the sort of the way to make the building bigger.
Which we had gotten into and
We
backed
had
off a
gotten
little bit
into at
because that's
one
when
point.
the
Right.
numbers really, I'm
Correct.
wondering about that southeast corner. If there's any way to go back out towards the ramp further in that direction. And then I'm
So,
also wondering about the baggage screening area. Could everything be shifted? Um,
so the bag screening area for the CBIS area is that's moving to where the current airline offices are.
right.
And that's whole corner is becoming hold room. That whole area where the bag screening is today is becoming your expanded hold room.
Why don't I think it might be helpful for the public in the discussion. I'm going to share
Sure.
this plan. Because it's really, while you and I are aware of it, I think it would be helpful for everybody else um, to see this.
Yep.
So, this is the contemplated um, program
Correct.
and authorization. And so this area number 5 for the public as well as for our discussion would be the 361 seats. And this eliminates the tent. This is this bump out.
Correct.
For discussion, what I was, in case it wasn't clear, and I hope you can see my cursor, I don't want to get into
Yep.
marking the whole thing up, but
Yep.
is it possible to come a couple more feet, add all those seats? Is it possible to come, I guess this would be to the east, but on the bottom,
Yes. Yep.
do a little bit, more where you hold ridge lines or whatnot,
Correct.
and pick up some. And then when I was talking about here for the baggage screening area, can that get, what if can that get squeezed a little bit, or is that based on the equipment and what's required? And I hope, and we're adding redundancy,
Correct.
right, in
Correct.
this. So we certainly don't want to lose that, right?
Correct.
So those are all things that I
Yep.
understand you might not be able to answer right now. My question sort of as we get, and I think the commission to approving a task order to do this design
Hmm.
is trying to make sure that we've all, and this is just my and the other commissioners too. I just wanted to share
Yep.
what I think, I'm synthesizing what I heard from the last meeting as well. And I know that that's my concern is that we're doing all of this, but essentially it kind of came to me, that we're picking up 50 seats. So I'll stop there and then turn it over, I think, to other commissioners and then back to you, and we can see, maybe how we might be able to proceed with this.
So I guess I'll just jump in right away.
Yeah.
So yes, I can probably work with the architect and we could meet up to two commissioners, at this point next week. If that what it takes to have you guys sort of get comfortable, that the program wants to adjust a little bit, sure.
Mhm. And okay. And so Mr. Levitt or Ms. Planzer, do you want to add any more to this? Or what are your thoughts? Yes, Mr. Levitt.
So I have a couple of questions. You gave us some capacity numbers for when the ramp goes to max capacity, which were the two 220s, 319, two Embraer 175s is 578 max passengers without getting into load factors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, theoretically, unless we get more ramp, that's the most we can ever have. What is our current maximum use? Because right now, we haven't upgauged, or JetBlue hasn't upgauged all of their aircraft, nor has American. So, for instance, last summer, what kind of aircraft were out there, and were there ever 5 of these aircraft? And if they were 5, what were they?
So last summer, the A220 was here, but it wasn't on every aircraft until September. This will be the first summer that we will be running, the JetBlue will be running all A220s, their entire fleet. Last year, American Airlines was running the E175. We're anticipating that this summer as well, but anticipating the 319 for the following summer. And then, yes, United and Delta run the Embraer 175. United does run a CRJ 700 on some routes, but they also run the E175 on, I think, the Newark route, which is a little larger aircraft, but not by much when it comes to seat capacity. So, that answers it.
Okay. No, that actually isn't the question I was asking. I'm trying to understand how that 578 relates to what we had last summer. So 578 is the max capacity. We weren't at max capacity last summer, and let's not talk about September. So during the summer, when the existing hold room was bulging, what roughly would that 578 compare to? So if you were talking about 1 A220 and 3 175s, would that be a reasonable guesstimate of what we had out there on a busy weekend?
Well, it would have been 1 A220, 1 E190, because that was the second JetBlue aircraft.
Okay.
And then 3 175s, yes.
Okay. And without me doing the math here, what does that add up to?
Preston, you may know what the E190 is. Is that 100 people on a plane?
E190s are, yes, 100.
100. So
You'll see where I'm
Just
going.
for clarification, the CRJ, it's a CRJ 550. It's a 700, and they pulled some seats out of it, and I believe it's around 55 passengers, roughly.
Okay.
I think.
So with that configuration, if you were maxed out, you're looking at about 477 passengers.
Okay. So what we're talking then about is going from 478 to 578?
Correct.
So you're talking about increasing 100 passengers over the 478 is a 21% increase. And what I heard the design was doing in the seats is only a 15% increase. And I think everybody could agree that if nothing changed and we had what we had last summer, at that 478 passenger capacity, the existing hold room isn't big enough, even without any growth. I've been in that lots of times where people are squeezed up against each other, including the use of the tent. And then when the fog starts and flights are canceled, you've got people that have arrived for flights. The equipment isn't even in yet. And nowhere in that count did you have the Cape Air passengers, which I understand may not be material if you're talking 8 or 9 passengers per aircraft. But it seems to me that the design that we're talking about would barely bring us up to handle the existing capacity. And now that we're talking about increasing the number of available seats by 20%, my concern is that we're going to spend a significant amount of money to go with the proposed plan, and it's barely going to get us up to handle existing capacity. And without getting into some of these models on what the terminal should have, anybody who sat in that hold room waiting for a flight knows that it's just too damn small. And you know, if you asked me, gee, if we increase it by 15%, would everything have been okay last summer with the existing traffic? I'm not sure 15% would have done it. But even if 15% was the right number, that just keeps us treading water. It doesn't do anything to handle the 21% of forecast traffic increase for the next summer. So that's my biggest concern. And I could probably summarize it by when I look at where we're going with this, and I understand we're rushing it because of the opportunity to get government money. But my sense is that we're doing a ready, fire, aim rather than a ready, aim, fire. And we're talking about big dollars that we're doing this with. I yield the floor.
Thank you. And the point is well made and taken. And so I think that we have gone through a lot of terminal optimization studies. We had asked for it to be brought back. We're still balancing whether we get the funds or not, the need for a project that we can do, right? So where is the reality of the meet in the middle type of a solution, understanding it might not be perfect, but could we do a bit better than we have on the table? I guess that's where I would be kind of coming at it from. You know, there's perfect without a, you know, that we could completely, you know, how are we going to fund it sort of a thing. Welcome, Mr. Buscarin. We are in the middle of the discussion about the terminal optimization project and discussing what collectively we feel would be an appropriate sized hold room, balancing all of the needs, the wants and the costs. So that's kind of where we're at. And a quick summary for you is that the existing tent and hold room is 313 passengers. Currently on the table would be going up to 361. All jets on all hard stands with our projections of them up gauging would be 578 passengers. And though these are a little bit shoot from the hip type numbers, as they said, it doesn't factor in that people might come early and the delays and whatnot. But you know, we're facing having to either authorize or not a task order for MJ to start you know, really getting into this design and significant expenditure by the airport. And I think what's important for the commission to decide is to give them as clear of direction as possible as to what the commission's expectations are for that, or hope as well, right? And what do we need to better understand? Mr. Levitt, if I could put it back to you, just based on these numbers and do you have a sense from what we've talked about and these, what in your just might be an appropriate sized number of seats in a hold room?
Well, maybe we should be throwing that question at our consultants. It seems to me that there should be some well-established models.
Fair
and
enough. Yeah.
guidelines
I mean, that was what I
for terminal
asked.
planning. But
Yeah, that's why I asked just a little while ago.
yeah, but what I'm concerned about is we've done this backwards, where we've said this is the largest hold room we can build and this is how many it would hold. And I'd rather understand from a blank piece of paper saying, okay, we have this many passengers, given this many passengers, and the other factors that we have on Nantucket, such as fog delays, what size should the hold room be? And
Well,
then decide whether the size hold room we should have, and I agree with you, not building the church for Easter Sunday, what size hold room should we have? And then trying to figure out whether we can make it fit, or whether we just have
Well,
physical limitations and can't get there.
I
And
mean,
maybe we install subway straps.
well, I think that part of that is that, we've kind of been down that where we've actually asked them to haul back the size of the design because the cost came in so high. And then we had a previous iteration where the terminal was expanded westerly, sort of where the current arrival baggage claim is, and then also filling in the so-called courtyard type area, right? So there had been a pretty good design that was based on that, and those numbers. And I want to be fair also to Mr. Lasden, because he's getting, we asked honestly that it be, downsized based on the number, I think the 55 to 60 million dollars we just didn't have an appetite for. Um, so I think that a lot of this is, and we need to move forward. We can't just end up being, I think, paralyzed by data, in that we only, we want to study this and know overall what we have to build. So, I mean, Mr. Lazen, do you have any other thoughts or to the architects of, how we might be able to, increase the size of this, and or to, Mr. Levitt's comments, is it worth, from the previous work that we did, do you have that data that would, how did you size the hold room on that initial design, I guess would be the question.
So there's a couple questions there, Mr. Chair. So
Yeah.
yes, I think as I offered, myself and a member of the architect can come down and meet with up to two of your commissioners next week. If that works, to sort of literally take out the crayon and say, we'll expand it here, we'll bump out there, we can absolutely do that. To Commissioner Levitt's point, yes, there are ACRP, or Airport Cooperative Research Program, models on how to size hold rooms and ticket counters and meter greeter halls and bag claim areas. There are tried and true models out there, and those models were used in the master plan that sized these terminals, and they were based on projected airline models for aircraft And they take a lot of those factors into account to come up with the hold room. I just, Mr. Levitt has a point in that 578 is the number, but as Mr. Smith and I said that it is very rare on Nantucket to fly a 100% load factor. So that will, automatically reduce the number. I'm not saying that when you have flight delays that there will be more people in that terminal, but outside of delayed operations, you shouldn't be seeing 578 passengers in there. I understand your point about, you want to solve this problem and, is it a iterative solution? And the architect has put together a plan here that you can do this and then still get to that other grander terminal expansion in the future. It is expandable towards that final answer, if that was the final answer.
Can I just respond to a couple of things?
Sure, go ahead. And then Mr. Buscarin.
I just want to go back to making sure we're comparing apples to apples. To your point that perhaps we don't assume 100% load factors. And so if you knock that 578 down to 80% of it, 70% of it, whatever number you choose, you have to do the same discount to the existing capacity on the existing aircraft. And what I keep coming back to with all of these numbers, unless you're suggesting that the airline load factors are going to go down,
No.
And if the load factors are going to go down, I don't understand the business justification for upgauging. But let's just assume that they're going to stay the same. We come back to the point that we're talking about increased airline or passenger capacity of 21% and an increased terminal of 15%. So we're not keeping up with the airline growth. And I don't think anybody would disagree that we don't have existing capacity now. So I'd be interested to know is what would the number be that we should increase the capacity of the hold room to handle existing traffic if nothing changed. Then once we get to that point, then if you're talking about increasing airline capacity by 21%, then I think you have to put that 21% on top of your first upgrade. And then my last point was that you had said at the end that you've designed something that's expandable and we can go back and add on to it. What we're then talking about is spending something north of $20 million now, which may only hold us for a little bit. And then you want to come back and spend even more money in the future. And I think we have to be looking about what needs to be spent over the next 5 years. And I'm just not comfortable that right now we understand that. Next person. Or back to the chair.
Mr. Buscarin.
Yes, that's this number of passengers we're going to get into this terminal is not the only parameter I'm looking at. I'm also considering how much money this is going to cost. Now, I think that's another parameter about which I am very concerned. It's great to build a hold room for 800 people or something, some imaginary future. We've got 5 hard stands here. I think it's quite determinable from our own experience that if we expand our hold room by just going west into the baggage area, as was suggested by the chair, that may be A, affordable, and B, expand our capacity to a reasonable degree. I'm not terribly interested in having a study to be done sometime next year. I'd like to make a decision tonight to expand the hold room at a total cost of less than $10 million, which means our contribution would be about half of that. That's the kind of money that I think we might be generating in retained earnings to pay for expansion. So I think we need to look at the whole picture, not just what we anticipate we're going to get for passengers in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Planzer, any?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there a way, I mean, we're uh, saying we need 578 capacity for that. What about, I mean, in those times, if they just screen by aircraft? I mean, sometimes I guess you might have to leave. But if everybody's, not everyone has to be in the whole room until they start boarding. So is there something we could count so many out?
So there are, if you don't mind, Ms. Planzer, there are operational restrictions on your fire code on how many you can put in there today. And
Mhm.
then after that, yes, there are operational memorandums of agreement that you can have with the TSA and just sort of kick people out of line or tell the TSA we're only going to allow into the hold room American flight Y and JetBlue flight Z, and everybody else please wait outside. Yes, you could absolutely do that. Do you do that today? I don't know. But yes, as my first statement, there are fire code restrictions on how many you can put in that room today. And that is up to your operations team to keep track of that.
So to advance this, Mr. Laz, I think there's a commitment from the commission that we, especially given the grant, that we want to do improvements to the terminal and we want to get rid of the tent, right? But the concern is throwing good money after bad, that you do this work and then it's just still, didn't accomplish the objective. Now, I think one of the objectives gets accomplished through the lot, through the replacement of the tent, right? Even if we didn't add any seats, we will have made a significant improvement to the passenger experience at AC with the replacement of the tent, with the improvements to the terminal. So I think we could go all the way from there, which is, I don't think overly supported, but it would be the lowest cost and still achieves that objective. And then there's the all the way to the other extreme, that is everybody should be comfortable almost at all times, sort of a thing. At the other, a cost that would accompany that kind of a project, and then still takes into the account the operational limits of the siting of the terminal. Regardless of all of that, I do think, need to authorize some amount for you to move forward, on design to even help us get to the next step. And I think that's really what was on the agenda for tonight, but I think we have to really be spending the time as a commission collectively on this, on what the majority is going to, decide what we end up with. And hopefully it's something that everybody agrees on. So what if we were to modify, first off, could the whole thing be put off to our March meeting, and we would just move forward at that point with a full task order instead of the letter of authorization tonight? Perhaps we needed a special meeting and say halfway between now and that meeting, or a the letter of authorization as is before us at the 1.5, or, and I'm laying everything out because I'd like to have a discussion on this, a letter of authorization for some reduced amount to then just leapfrog us to that next step.
So at this point, I'm not sure if it's even going to make the March meeting because the airport has not finalized the scope. And then after that, it has to go to the state and federal government for review. And then it has to go out for an IFE. So I don't know if there's enough time.
So probably April. All right. So we're looking at April to get you if we can kind of move everything ahead.
Correct.
So
Correct.
what you would need is funding authorization between now and the approval of the task order.
Correct.
I hope that's not $1.5 million.
So I asked the airport manager to reach out to Jeff Freeman at Martha's Vineyard. He is in the process of doing a similar project, only it has more expansion. He has a 40-something million terminal project, and his design fee, just as a design fee, not construction services, his design fee, Warren, was $4.5 million, $4.7 million. You told me you checked with Jeff?
Sorry, it was roughly design fee. It's about 4.6 million, if I'm correct.
$4.6 million was his design fee. So that's why I've been saying that this design fee is probably in the $3 million range.
So I think that's very helpful for us to, understand. And I guess the question would be, how much would we need to authorize to have you help us refine this scope so that we could, I think, get to a level of comfort with everyone that we're in fact going to move forward with that committing to the 3 million,
So,
whatever that might be.
that sounds like just an interim,
Right.
a couple of weeks or.
Yeah, like let's say a month, and again, I'm not trying to totally put you on the spot, but
Yeah,
I would like
yeah.
to, I would like to have the commission to have a, to authorize understanding that, there's a cost and we're asking you to do these things in this work,
Yeah,
authorize some amount that we all agree on,
yeah.
for say between now and maybe the next meeting, um, is sort of what I'm wondering.
So after this meeting is over, I will have a conversation with the architect and see what their thoughts are.
So as a commission, I think we should have a discussion of how we want to proceed with this. Um, Understanding the level of what we're looking at committing to here, for design services to improve the terminal. Go ahead, Mr. Buscarin.
It sounds like we have an exigency of April to get this thing on the road, even to get government money. So it sounds like the entry fee is $3 million to even make this inquiry, or even get design specs to get this tractor on the road. So it sounds to me like we need $3 million to get in the game as an ante fee. Sounds like that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're hearing. So then, maybe we stay on track, but I think regardless of that, tonight's discussion is an important one to establish the level of the project that the commission wants to move forward with, and to make sure that that's very clear that we're looking at that level of expenditure. Mr. Lasden, if we were not awarded the grant, and let's say the project didn't go forward, I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like to ask it for everyone.
Sure.
Would we be able to apply for discretionary funds to reimburse those design costs?
So unfortunately, the rules with the FAA are is if you take a grant for what's called the design only grant, you have to build it within 2 years. Otherwise, you have to pay the grant back.
Yeah, all right. I thought we've had that. I think I've asked you that before, but I
Yeah,
just
no,
think
that's fine.
I just think
Yeah.
that it's important that so this is strictly, now if we go forward and that your costs all get wrapped into the overall project, then we can cover it with the grant, correct?
Right.
That's what, so, I mean, there's,
Again, our fee would be 53% eligible. If that's the number we come up with the end,
got it. Yeah.
your
Right.
construction would be 53% eligible.
Yeah.
The FAA just wraps all that up into the eligibility calculation. Mr. Levitt, sir, you had a question?
Yeah, it sounds like from what you described, this almost lottery with the FAA, where there's $1 billion to go around to 7 billion of requests. We theoretically could get to April and May and find out that the FAA has decided to grant us 0, or grant us 10 or 20% or some number less than 50%. At
Mhm.
which point, is the commission planning to go forward and build this terminal if we have to cover 100% of the expenses ourselves? I'm guessing the answer is no, but that would mean that we've now essentially flushed 3 million down the toilet if we're not going to use it or use it within the next 2 years. And I think I also heard you say that this is the last year that you'll be able to apply for these grants. So it sounds like if we don't get the grant this year and we spend the 3 million, we're either going to build a terminal or we're going to flush the 3 million. Is that fair?
Well, I might add there that I think that there would be a hope to still improve the terminal to some extent to replace the tent, right? So I don't think it's an all is lost. It's just how much we have to fund completely locally and what the appetite, and that gets back to the concern of the design, being what might we be able to move forward with on a strictly local basis. And that's kind of how we ended up with where we are, and I don't even know that we could do that, but let's just say we were looking at a 20, what I think we were talking about 26 million, if I remember right, for sort of what would be on the table. The question is, and then add the design on top of that. So like $30 million. Are we, going long term, borrowing and moving forward on a project like that? I think we have to do something. I think that the long term stability of, using this tent is not really where we should be. That's my opinion. But Mr. Buscarin.
This is like a poker game, okay? You got to pay 3 million to get in the game. That's the ante. Uh, if we don't ante up, we don't even get to open the box to find out whether we get any federal grant or not. So, that's the hard decision.
Right.
My vote is we got to pony up 3 million bucks, which I think is outrageous, but if that's the number, that's the number. To get somebody in here to take a look at our situation and so that we can apply for this grant. Otherwise, we're back to the tent. And we've already agreed we've driven by doing the tent again. Well, the tent, I was fine with the tent, but it sounds like the sense of the commission is we need to do something to expand the size of the whole room. To get in the game, to get in this poker game, we got to pay 3 million bucks. I'm willing to do that.
I mean, the tent was, the commercial service kind of came at us, and then it has just ballooned and morphed in the last decade, and it's not going anywhere, right? I don't think. And so I think we have to, as a facility, accommodate that. Now the question gets back to, and this, I think Mr. Levitt's point is that, okay, now, so then accommodate it and build what you have to completely. But at that, as we weigh this out, so before us tonight is we simply, after all of this, we approve the letter of authorization for $1.5 million, and get MJ going on that. We approve it for some reduced amount and then revisit it in, to get him going, but have a refined scope for our next meeting. and then follow that up with the task order. So I think that's what's on the table. Mr. Smith, do you have any? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Levitt.
To Tony's point about 3 million to ante up. As I understand it, part of the reason we're doing this is because of the rush to be ready if we are awarded the money and need to be able to go in September. But we're going to have a decision in this April-May window as to whether or not we've been selected. Is there a way to spend less than 3 million to move this along, but not all the way? And then if we're awarded, to pay some rush fees on the other side of it so that we're ready for September. So what we'd be playing on the odds were, if we don't get any money, we'd pay less. If we got the money, we'd end up paying more with the rush fee on top of it. But we're at least covering the downside of it.
So,
Mr. Laston.
Yes. So, Mr. Levitt, yes, to speak in the terms we've been speaking, if in April you sign a $3 million fee with us to start, and then in May you find out that you weren't awarded or you weren't awarded enough, you can tell us to stop. Whatever money we've spent to date is, as you've used, sort of lost money. But yeah, you could just have us stop design.
So when that order comes down and we gave you the stop work order, how much would we have spent of the 3 million, roughly?
I don't know. We'd have to sort of look and see how much the team had spent at that point, but it wouldn't be the whole thing. It would be, if we're at 30% design, presumably it would be with 30% of that number.
So in Tony's terms, then we're paying $1 million ante at that point, not 3.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like we go forward with the letter of author, maybe. I mean, we go forward with the letter of authorization and then we meet next week with Mr. Lasden and the architects and just see what maybe we can do for get a little bit more without going all the way, or also bring back, I think, Mr. Levitt, I think it would be helpful to get you copies of the plans. And everybody, I think at this point, let's also, for this, bring back, distribute a copy of the plans that we had from our round one to understand what that whole room size. I don't remember what it had been sized at there. There was a, and look at those too. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
And Mr. Lasden, if you want to do a Zoom instead of coming down, whatever you want to do, we could work that out. Or if you want to come down,
I think it's probably more beneficial to be there again, up to 2 commissioners, because it wouldn't be a quorum.
Mhm. Does anybody else interested in doing that? I'm happy to do it.
Can do it.
So, Karen, you're interested?
Sure.
Okay. Does that work for Mr. Levitt? Does that work for you, Ms. Planzer?
I can't be there, so
Yeah.
I won't.
Mr. Levitt.
Well, Phil and I are going to be tied up with our fuel subcommittee next
All right,
week.
so you
I
do the
think
fuel.
this is a good
Mr.
way to
Viscarin
split
and I
the
will
work.
work on the terminal, and then we'll all circle back, and maybe we have another meeting before March, again by Zoom like this if we need to. But I think this is the time to really work on all of these things, and it's so important for the airport. We have to get and if that a former manager once told me, and I'll share this, that Nantucket has friends on both sides of the aisle in Washington. So my hope is that maybe somehow that light shines back on us again, and we're fortunate. So That's, I guess, the best we can do. All right. So in that case, is there a motion to approve the letter of authorization that was in our packet?
So moved.
Uh,
Can I
Yeah,
jump
go
in
ahead.
before
Yeah.
we have that vote? Um, my discomfort with the letter in the packet is it's a single page and it reads as a blank check. I would rather see something that has a little more description as to what the money is going to be spent on. Because the way I look at it is it can be spent on anything. And I'm not comfortable with that.
How do we contain that appropriately, either in Mr. Lasden, if that was a lesser amount, and maybe that, as well as, does there need to be any other language in that? The other side of that is that we could not authorize payment if it was for any services that were outside of the terminal. I don't think this is going to happen, but I guess that's the question: is how do how do we? And I see that we have our finance director on here as well. How do we make this work, Mr. Lauzon? First, would ask for this amount. Is there a lesser amount that would work for you as an interim,
So,
as well as,
you
is
know,
there a
if are you looking for me to say $1 million instead of $1.5 million? Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
that's fine. I will say that, and take this for what it is, we've used that same letter you've seen a couple of times with
Right.
two of your past managers.
Right.
So, you could say in there that, not to exceed $1 million for the design of the terminal between now and April. If it doesn't say that now, right?
I mean, it already reads.
Yep.
I think it's directed to, I guess, if I could, either Mr. Smith or Ms. Bashiva, are there sufficient protections for the airport within that letter if the commission was to approve it? That the fund that it's authorizing to address Mr. Levitt's concerns, that it's directed funding.
Can I just jump in before?
Yeah,
that?
please.
My concern, I was going to say, is less than with the amount there, although the amount is concerning. But I'm not asking to just knock the amount down. I'm just asking to add some language in there specifying what the funds can be spent on. Because this evening we've talked about doing lots of different things, and I'd want to be sure there's not any confusion as to what we're authorizing MJ to proceed forward on. So it seemed to me to be pretty simple to just add a few bullet points, or another page would say the funds can be spent on 1, 2, 3, and 4, and have a sense as to where that money's going to be spent.
So Mr. Levitt, perhaps if we put in there that the money will be, to your point, based on the meeting that the airport subcommittee on the terminal has with the architectural team next week. Because the architectural
Well, it says, I
subcommittee.
mean, when I read the letter,
Yep.
it says to commence work on the airport terminal optimization design.
Yep.
I mean, it seemed, I understand your point, Mr. Levitt, but we're also working with our consultant that we've worked with for many years, and we're having this discussion publicly. The only work that I see that is authorized by this letter is airport terminal optimization design. So, Lazen, do you feel
Yes.
that there would be any other work outside of that scope?
No, that's what we're talking about here for this project is the
So,
terminal.
Mr. Levitt, what suggested language would you have to insert, I guess, or I'd like to get this done, honestly. And so,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
if I may through you, I think maybe mentioning it in the motion to be part of the motion, when you approve this, in that case, any other work the MJ is gonna need to do, or if it needs to spend more than $1 million or $1.5 million or whatever number you stop by, we gonna have to come back to you again.
I think it all says that in the letter, respectfully. I think that, unless it's modified in writing between the parties, it's a lot. I mean, that was my initial concern, to be fair, reading this, but I think that having really worked through this, that if we have, this is a piece of what it's going to take to get in the game. And the funds are, directed only for airport terminal optimization design.
And to be even more accurate, like the funding source will be that one specific capital article for the terminal improvement. So by law, we cannot use that capital article for anything else but improvements to the terminal. So any design work
And-
and further. So we couldn't even.
So there's another level of protection.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Because of the language in that particular article in the warrant at town meeting. So
Mr.
I hope
Levitt?
that's enough. I hope.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear with my concern. Where we're talking about authorizing them to spend money on the design of terminal optimization, I don't think we've set the goal. Is the goal to optimize a terminal that's going to fit within the four walls? Are we just asking them to design something for a not to exceed 10 million that Tony suggested, 22 million that was here before? Are we asking them to design something that will meet a certain number of passenger capacity? I'm not sure what we're asking them to design to.
That's where our whole discussion went. I mean, that remains the concern, and that's where I feel like this meeting next week, and then come back and try to get everyone to decide on giving Mr. Lasden clear direction as to what our expectations are for a terminal that we intend to build, whether we get the funding or not. I mean, I think that's how we have to hope for it, but I think it should be a project that we should be contemplating doing for the benefit of the airport, either way. So how much work is he really going to do between now and next week? The question is, in that case, do we, unless you want to continue on the discussion now, which we can, back to what is the scope? We have a program that's been provided to us based on, and what I think we were asking is, can we make that a little bit bigger without, significantly increasing the cost? Or do we have, we can also revisit and bring back what that full blown, and I don't remember what the number was for the whole room capacity at the much more expensive terminal project. I don't think it was that much bigger of a hold room. I think it was other amenities and improvements, but I haven't looked at that in a while. Mr. Buscarin.
Why don't we approve the letter as written and just add the language at the end to be modified at the next meeting as needed?
It's in there. The last sentence says, unless authorization is modified in writing between the parties.
I don't have a problem with that. I think the letter's fine.
Yeah.
We can't design the letter today for events that in the future that we can't anticipate.
I think as well that we've got to try to move this forward. And we also have to continue to work with our consultant and as a commission to decide again what the program is going to be. So let's take one more step, let's get them started. There's going to be some we seemingly are in agreement of a project. It's just what exactly should we go forward with, and we'll meet next week, and then we'll come back to the commission with some alternatives at a very sketch type level, perhaps, maybe a second modification, which he's going to need some funds for, and working with the architect to look at, and we'll bring back the plan that's on the table right now, the plan that we had, and then what perhaps a little bit of a hybrid might look like would be my thinking on that. Go ahead, Mr. Levitt.
Quick question. Rich, realistically, with what you've got on your desk and other things, how much are you going to spend between now and the end of next week?
Between now and the end of next week?
Yeah.
$5,000?
Right. Okay. So if that's really the case, and we're going to know a lot more after you meet with Art and Tony next week down here at the airport, at which point you can either put the brakes on it or cut you loose and say go wild, then I don't have a problem, because what we're basically saying is you're going to spend $5,000 before we come back to you with a little more guidance.
Yeah.
Accordingly, I renew my motion to approve the letter as written.
And to help you out, I will second it, being the most negative so far.
All right, so the motion's been made and seconded.
Like a blessing, yes.
Thank you. And any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Lasden. Let's figure out what might work.
If you would
Next
give
week.
ti- if
I'm
you
here.
would give- If you would give times to the airport manager on
Just-
when you and Mr. Buscarin are available?
Sure. Or why don't you let us know when you can come down? I'm across the street.
I know,
I'm here.
So,
but it's
yeah. So,
okay.
all
I will
right.
check with the architect after this meeting,
Okay.
and then we will find a date and
All right.
time.
I appreciate that. I think we can hopefully, get this hammered out a little bit more, and then, we might, I think, need another meeting, but we'll go from there. So thank you all for your patience and the discussion on this. Appreciate it. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Now that I went through all these other PDFs, I just need a second. PFAS, Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'll turn the time over to our environmental coordinator, Madison Collins, for the update.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Thank you. So we have pretty short updates today. So one thing we are working on is completing the water hookups. We have six more left to complete the contracts on. Right now, 3 of them are going to be finished hopefully by the end of this month. So we have 30 and 44 MVR have contracts and are expected to be completed by this month. And then 21 Monahans has completed their connection, and they are working through their reimbursement process. And then right now we need 1 Novadear, 6 Skyline, and 6 Evergreen to find a contractor. We are also right now in the specs process for the fuel farm remediation project. So right now the FAA is going to review the specs and provide commentary on that. And then lastly, we are working on updating the PFAS website. I do not have any confirmed language on what has been changed yet, but I'm continuing to meet with our consultants to make sure our PFAS website is up to date and more clear. And that's it. I can return it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, so keep us posted, please. Let's try to get those done. Thank you. Terminal optimization project, I think we have addressed that. And we'll move on unless anyone wants to add anything more. And the second quarter report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, looking at the second quarter report, hopefully you were able to look at that in the packet. Just to go through the quick summary. The airport revenue collected in the second quarter totaled $11,056,163, which is an increase in 4% compared to the same quarter last fiscal year. Primary driver was the quarter-over-quarter increase was fuel sales revenue. The spending limit to the fuel revolver was increased from $6 million to $8.5 million. This ensures sufficient available funds to purchase fuel through the end of our fiscal year. Overall, total fuel sales year-to-date revenue increased by 25% compared to last fiscal year, roughly $3 million. FBI revenue rose 9% over the same quarter. Vehicle income, including parking lot fees, parking tickets, taxi permits, also increased by 16%. Fee income decreased by roughly 5% over the second quarter, and interest on investments declined by 21% compared to the same period of 25, roughly $94,000. So total revenue, including other financing sources, ended the quarter at 125% of the annual budget amount. Looking at airport expenses, operating expenses excluding debt service totaled roughly a little over $3 million for the quarter, which reflected a real insignificant increase compared to the second quarter of FY25. Salaries and Medicare increased by 7% respectively due to annual salary adjustments and overtime related to the holidays, and medical insurance increased, which is typical year over year. FBO and operational expenses increased by 59% and 41%. I do believe it was because we did replace the furniture in the FBO, which was severely outdated. We also did some painting of the FBO and terminal buildings, which was definitely needed. Looks really good. So that definitely increased the cost, the expenses in those two areas for those. Administrative expenses included the utilities and credit card fees decreased by 24% compared to FY25 quarter two, and repairs and maintenance also declined by roughly 39%. General insurance shows a significant increase compared to the same quarter last year due to a large settlement that was recently paid with a former employee. And operating expenses, including debt service, finished the 6-month period down 87% compared to the same period last year. In the second quarter last year, we had some bans due, and total expenses, including the debt service, ended the quarter at 58% of our annual budget allocation. Any questions, Commissioner, you might have with that?
Anybody have any questions? Nope. That all looks great. Thank you all for your work on that. And that'll move us on to the manager's report.
Perfect. Yeah. Project updates for the AIP projects. The last GPU for the ground support equipment was delivered last week. We now have 2 GPUs that can handle the larger private aircrafts for this upcoming summer, which is great. That gives us a total of, I think, 4 total GPUs for the Southwest ramp for the upcoming season. High mast lights, due to the long lead time of the light fixtures, which is roughly 3 months, and the light poles were about 1.5 months. We are currently working with McFarland Johnson on a schedule to coordinate best approach for construction. With the project beginning, we're anticipating to start it on the commercial ramp area and then working toward the Southwest ramp, kind of wrapping around the terminal. That'll ensure that if this project does go a little bit over past the May 15th date due to these long lead times, that we're not interfering with the commercial service, particularly for security reasons. We should be on track for that schedule, but just in case, we're gonna work on a better schedule just to ensure that if there's any hiccups, that we're not, like I said, interrupting any commercial air service. For the master plan, the final ALP set is still under review with the FAA. It does take many months for that to get completed. They have to have all the moving parts, review all the specifics to that master plan. It is not a small document, and so as anticipated, we're still just waiting for that final review from them to make this official. For the DBE, ACDBE, our DBE goals were approved. However, the plan needed some revisioning by the FAA. They sent us which revisionings needed addressing. That has been updated and is back into their hands for review and hopefully approval by the end of this week. With the commuter apron resurfacing, the scope of work was reviewed by management here. We are working on a construction schedule for the fall with McFarland Johnson, and the project is to be bid in March. The geotech and markings started yesterday, and surveying is scheduled later this month. Moving down to the non-AIP projects, the sound barrier noise wall, 31 holes have been drilled to date. Concrete pouring was held off, was supposed to start this last week. Actually, was supposed to start yesterday. However, it was held off due to the impending storm, as we were anticipating 20+ inches of snow on top of the snow we already had. However, that didn't happen, so pouring probably has already begun and should be started at least this week for that project. For the concrete hard stands, the gate 2, bids are going out at the end of the month for a March construction start, and the 60% review meeting is scheduled next Tuesday, the 12th, with the FAA and with Massachusetts Department of Transportation to review. And currently there are no tenant alteration applications at this time. For RFP bid status, the flat roof RFP was completed. It closed. We have 2 proposals that were received. A committee has been established, and a review of the proposals is scheduled for this coming Thursday. And the RFQs for the consultant services are currently being drafted by my staff, and along with the RFQ for the OPM services. And we should have the consultant services on the streets here really, really soon, if not by the end of this week, hopefully by the start of next week. For the grass landing operations, my assistant manager has been stalwart in getting a first draft. It's been designed and sent to our legal team for their review, just awaiting their confirmation and their review of the grass landing operations. We hope to have the final review or final document for next month's airport commission meeting for the commissioners to look at. And with the TSA, Confirm ID began this past Sunday. As we had discussed in the last airport commission meeting, no changes or issues have been reported since then. Everything seems to be normal, business as normal, especially here at Nantucket. With training, 2 staff members are seeking their CDL and will be in training the week of March 16th to get their licenses. And the airport has been working in conjunction with the town. We did this last year, and it was very effective, and we look forward to doing it again with them this year. And collective bargaining, the kickoff meeting occurred prior to the holiday season, and our first meeting was held last week on January 28th to begin negotiations, and we are currently still in that negotiation phase. Statistics, we just barely received those stats today, as we don't get them until about the 1st of each month. Due to that, I plan to present December's stats at the next coming AirCom meeting along with February's numbers. And nothing in the personnel report that I have. We did have the APU log. We did have 4 APU action entries. 4 initial warnings were given to pilots in command. And following those 4 warnings, all the pilots complied with the APU limitations and provided their reasoning for running. I do believe that we're looking to refine this APU log a little better by providing tail numbers, reasons for any non-compliance, and and hopefully find maybe startup time and departure time. And I'm going to work with my airport operations staff to see if that's doable. We should be able to, and hopefully be able to present those in the upcoming airport commission meetings moving forward. That's all that I have. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Levitt?
2 quick questions. Warren, you mentioned the TSA starting the real ID. I don't have the last.
I'm sorry, I meant Confirm ID. If I said real ID, I apologize. I meant Confirm ID.
Confirm ID. Yeah, I think you said that. But I think we discussed at the last meeting, and I haven't gone through the minutes today, that we were going to talk about some community outreach to let people know this is coming. Did we indeed do that?
I thought I saw an ad in the paper.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Terrific. And then my other question that was not part of your report, we just went through a pretty significant snow and ice storm that a lot of us are still trying to cope with. Can you just give us a quick overview of what happened at the airport? Were there closures? Did you have to bring extra staff in or spent a lot of overtime to keep up with it? Just give us a general sense as to how you handled the storm.
Absolutely. In fact, not to put him on the spot, I'll turn the time over to my assistant airport manager, Preston Harriman, as he manages that operation. He could give probably a lot better report than I could.
Sure, no problem. So the weather event that occurred, it was January 25th through the 27th. With the 8 or 10 inches of snow that we received. The crew, our maintenance team, was called in on, I believe, on Sunday. So yes, that is creating some overtime. Everybody came in, they plowed, and I think we were actually able to get one runway open that evening. I'm not sure if anybody did any landings or any takeoffs. But as we all know, the temperatures then plummeted that evening and everything froze. So on Monday morning, everybody was called back fairly early to see what we could do as far as improving the braking action on the airfield. It took about, I think, until midday, early afternoon for the sun to come out to be able to help us to get the braking actions where we needed to be in order to get, I believe, runway 33 opened and associated taxiways because the winds were out of the northwest. After that, we were just battling nonstop winds. They were gusting, you know, up to 40 miles an hour. So we were dealing with snow drifts. So that was a battle. And of course, we were, you know, guys out front with you know, vehicles and sanding. Big shout out to the team, the janitors, operations, everybody in front of the terminal that were boots on the ground with you know, shovels in their hands. Overall, it was a good experience. We've got a lot of new individuals, especially in our maintenance team, and everybody did a good job. And actually sat down, had a after action meeting to kind of discuss some pros and cons. So overall, everybody did an excellent job.
Great to hear.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything further? Thank you to the whole team for stepping up, and I'm sure it's you know, we appreciate it. You know, everyone's gotta do what they have to do, and
Thank you.
it might not be what you had planned. And so it's appreciated. I hope it's understanding it's all sort of hands on deck sometimes. Okay, moving on. If nobody has anything else on the manager report, are there any commissioners' comments? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
Thank you. And motion been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levitt,
Aye.
Mr. Biscarin, the chair votes aye. Thank you all very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.